Woohoo.
All right. Don't know if I've ever seen this many people on Zoom at the same time. Have we broken it yet?
I saw Chanel there for a second.
Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Where the hell do we?
What's up, Mitch?
It's very hard to know which one of you is talking at any one time. So whilst we have our sort of little rabble at the beginning, feel free to unmute yourselves. Just tell me who you are and then shout out.
Yeah, hearing.
I see Mark Holt.
Hi, Mitch.
Hey, Mitch.
Ben. Hey,
Yeah,
Chad.
welcome back. Good to see you again.
Hello, Mitch and Company.
And I don't see Mark.
John Atkins just joined the group.
Mambo Mike out of Minneapolis.
Hi.
Hi,
Ron
hey.
Ripley in Seacrest, Florida.
Hey, I just realised I never actually said it's Ben from London via Minneapolis.
Hi there, Alan Bananas, sales manager, European Wines and Spirits in Denver, Colorado. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Mitch.
American Northwest in Seattle, Washington.
Hey, Pat.
Hey. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Mitch. It's Jay in Florida. I'll say hello from the entire Florida Rum Society so that they don't all have to unmute and do it. But thanks for having us. We're excited.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks everyone at FRS. Welcome.
Hey, Jay. Hey, Mitch. It's Chuck from the Minnesota Rum Society.
Hey, Jack. Good to see you again, man.
Good to see you too.
I'm Selma from Selma's Bar in Richwood, Queens in New York City.
Hey, Selma.
Selma.
Wow.
Selma was the first person to RSVP for this tasting because Selma actually RSVP'd for the UK launch several months ago, and we said we will make sure you're on this list.
I was so
it's wonderful to see
excited.
you here. First in the door, I like it.
I'm Marnie. I'm from Portland, Oregon. Drink, think, broker.
Hey, Marnie. Hey, welcome.
Well, I'm Kim and Adam Fox from Portland, Oregon, also Westmoreland Liquor.
Hey, welcome. Welcome, everyone.
I'm
We're
Kristen and Amy from Death or Glory in Delray, Florida.
Hi, Amy.
Hello.
Did I hear that someone was from Westmoreland before? I think I did.
You did. You did.
Yes. Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, well, thanks for having us.
Hey, I'm Leslie from Colorado Springs, Colorado at Coltrane Wine and Spirits. I'm looking forward to this very much.
Cool.
Welcome. Hey, Leslie.
Hey, this is Matt Chamberlain. I'm in DeLand on shift actually right now at my bar, and I'm part of the Florida Rum Society. Jay, thanks for setting this up, man.
Awesome. Welcome, Matt. We are at 140 people numbers wise, which is insane. We weren't actually sure if our Zoom could hold that many people, so I'm very glad that we paid our bills this month. And we've even got some people who are doubling up on the screen. So I think we're probably over the 150, 160 mark here. So welcome everyone. I want to get straight into it because I really want to drink some rum with you all. So I'm gonna just start introducing everyone and get this show on the road. We're gonna get a few more people turning up on island time, I have no doubt. But as everyone's coming in, let me say first of all a big welcome and a big thank you to all of you for joining us today. My name is Mitch Wilson. I'm the Global Ambassador for Black Tot Rum. I'm dialing in from London today, where it's 1:30 a.m., the perfect time for drinking rum and getting started on this session with you all. I'm going to be introducing some incredible speakers with me tonight, who I'm going to be speaking to and ask some questions to and throwing out some stuff. But I want to first of all say such a big welcome to all of you here. This last year has been obviously one of the craziest, most insane, hardest, devastating years for the bar and booze industry and everyone in between. I think one of the things which I miss so much is being able to just come and hang out with you guys at a bar, having a drink. You know, we could all be at Rumba right now, which is why we sent you the little virtual background, so we can, those of you who don't have some booze already can pretend we're all in the bar together in Seattle with Jen. And yeah, it's one of the things which I miss the most. And to have the chance to be able to have a rum with you all tonight is one of the good things that's come out of this pandemic, because you know, we would never, I don't think we would have been able to fit you all into Rum Bar. We would have tried, but but we've got, you know, over 150 people here from all different states across the country. We've got some incredible people in this room, and it's just so wonderful to have you all here together. So I hope that, you know, this is a good substitute until we can do this all together in real life. And I really hope you enjoy the session and what we've put together for you guys tonight. I'd like to introduce our special guests tonight, my co-speakers and co-hosts for the evening. So first up, we have the Grand Master or General Manager. I think that's, I'm not sure what GM stands for, but I like to think of her as the Queen of Rumba Seattle. We have Miss Jen Aiken joining us tonight from Seattle, Washington. Hey Jen, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Welcome. We also have tonight the founder of Black Tot Rum and owner of Whiskey Exchange, Sikhinda Singh. Welcome, Sukhinder.
Hi, guys.
Hello. Sukhinder's got a few dusty old bottles behind him. They're probably not worth much. We have, and finally, my final co-speaker for tonight is currently in New Orleans, Louisiana. He's the Wonkin chief from Cocktail Wonk, Mr. Matt Pietrek. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hello there. Good to see you all.
Hello, welcome.
Yes, and it's good to have Rumba's virtual background. I spent countless hours there. So
there's a strong Rum Bar connection going on tonight, and it's it's wonderful to have you guys over. And yeah, as I say, I can't wait till we can do this all in real life and get as many people together, whether it's in Seattle or whatever state you guys are in. So so just to give you a sort of a run through of tonight and what to expect and what we've got lined up for you. So first of all, why are we doing it? I guess, well, we wanted to have a drink with everyone. We wanted to bring everyone together. A lot of you across the United States have been very, very kind and supported Black Tot Rum over the past year. It's very odd trying to sort of launch a rum without actually being able to go anywhere to launch it or pour it for anyone. So for all of you who have got behind us and supported us and tuned in for virtual events like the Black Tot Day 24 hours and other things that we've done, thank you so much for being a part of that journey. We are obviously here tonight as well to launch a new baby, our Black Tot 50th anniversary, which I'm very excited for you all to try tonight. It's just arrived in the United States. I think in some places it's already sold out, but there are still some available. So make sure you hit up your wonderful Impex rep in your local area who will be able to point you to the nearest bottles there. And we are tonight going to taste our way through it. Everyone should have received a lovely little tasting pack, which looks a little something like this. So hopefully you all have them. Hopefully we've had some issues with Brexit, where England just decided not to play ball with anywhere in the world. So delivery has been harder than usual, but hopefully most of you have received these. And in these packs, you'll have 5 rums, which we're going to be tasting through tonight. Now, the order for tonight is going to be Barbados first up, which I recommend. Let's pour that right now, just so that we've got a little rum in our glasses. So Barbados to start with. We're then going to go to Guyana. Then we're going to Jamaica. Then our Black Tot Finest Caribbean, the final blend. And then finally, we're going to finish on Black Tot 50th anniversary together. Now, just to sort of give you an overview of these rums, the Barbados, Guyana, and Jamaica are the actual component rums that we blend together to make Black Tot Finest Caribbean. One of the things that's very important to myself, to Sukhinder, to all the Black Tot team here is that I believe that blends should be very transparent. As many of you know, the rum world is famously not transparent at times. And I think one of the ways in which we can appreciate great blends is to actually talk about what's in them and what makes them up. So we'll talk about all of that tonight and how much each rum plays a part in the overall blend. You've got all the blend percentages actually on the labels as well, so you can see how much they make up of Black Tot Finest Caribbean. And so yeah, so we'll drink some hopefully tasty rums and hopefully find you some new little favorites in there. So to start off with, first of all, cheers to everyone. So we're starting off with Barbados. Raise a glass. So we are beginning with our Barbados component, which is a 5-year tropically aged from Foursquare. It makes up 35% of our Black Tot Finest Caribbean blend. It's a blend of pot and column, and all of these initial components for Barbados, Guyana, and Jamaica, we've all brought to 46.2%, because that's what Finest Caribbean is at the end as well. So you can try them all sort of nice and side by side next to each other. And I would love to bring up, first of all, to chat a little rum with our first guest of the night, Miss Jen Aiken. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk to all these amazing rum lovers about rum. It's literally my favorite subject. So.
Well, I guess it would be hard to be running Rum Bar without it being your favorite subject, right? It's
yeah, you know, I get asked that a lot. Do you have to like rum to work here? And I'm like, I don't know. Yes. You have to talk about it with like adoration constantly. So, and if you don't love rum, it's such a passion project for everyone that works there. You know, it just doesn't make sense if you're not super passionate about rum. And then even, you know, you start working there and maybe you like rum, but I think everyone that has worked there has come out with like just this great sense of like admiration for the category in general. So.
Yeah, fantastic. It's well, it is one of those homes of rum that we see around the world. You know, it's one of those classic rum bars that is on the must visit list for any rum lover, I think. So yeah, it's wonderful to have you here, and thank you, and especially thank you as well for being part of our journey with 24 hours and over the last year. And I remember you sending me a picture early doors of you guys doing like laybacks of Black Tot Last Consignment rum on Black Tot Day, and I thought, I think we're going to get along.
Yeah, we love Black Tot Day, and every year I think I try and come up with something more insane to do for Black Tot Day for the photographs. And I just wanted to kick Jim Romdahl's ass because he had a picture of him like laying on the bar, like doing layback of Black Tot, and every time we kill a bottle of Black Tot, we keep it on our wall so that we just know how many bottles of Black Tot we have drank through as a bar. And we have like 5, 6, 7 bottles on the bar. And I was like, let's just get a bunch of people together and let's just do a bunch of like laybacks of Black Tot. Obviously, we weren't actually laying back Black Tot. That would be kind of insane. But it was really fun. It was a fun photo shoot for sure. So
I feel like we may need to do some Black Tot laybacks when I visit there. That will be Absolutely. First on the list. So I'd love to know your origin story of rum, because everyone has a story of how they got into rum, and I can see in the comments Chanel and Serge has somehow got on here, which I'm surprised he hasn't been banned from Zoom, but no, everyone has an origin story for rum. Like mine was at Trailer Happiness in London, and you know that opened my eyes to the world of rum. But what was your journey? How did you get into it, Jen?
So if I'm being honest, my journey didn't start off great. When I grew up in Kansas, and I grew up drinking only like flavored vodkas and appletini. That was like the only way for me to drink for a really long time. And when I was 19 years old, I met this boy who I just like fell head over heels for, and he brought over a bottle of Captain Morgan Spice rum to my house. And I really wanted to impress him, and so I started drinking it with him, and it just made me so sick. And from that point on, I swore off rum until I was about 28, 29 years old, and I moved to Seattle, and I went to this bar called Rumba. Some of you might have heard of it. And I was told I needed to go there because it was run by this badass woman who would show me that rum was way more than just Captain Morgan Spice rum, and I was gonna like it. And I feel very lucky to have sat down at that bar and met Kate Perry, because that's what I told her. I was like, I don't like rum. It's disgusting. I can't stand it. And she poured me a flight of Panama rums and was like, you just don't know about rum. And she gave me like a very introduction. I started a rum map, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. But I just started like exploring the world through the eyes of rum, and I fell in love with it immediately. And part of it was probably like I was falling in love with Kate Perry a little bit too, and then the bar behind her, like it's just so beautiful. And I was like, this is my place. This is my love. And I think just like there's so much to learn about it, about rum in general. And I love to learn. I love finding out new things every day, and having something to, I'll sit up in bed and I'll be on like rum blogs and Facebook, and what can I learn? What can I read? And I think that's what keeps me in it. So I would say it started off on the wrong foot. Rumba got me on the right foot, and now it's just been like, that's how it's gone for me. It's been Rumba and rum from there on out. So
yeah, it's funny, isn't it, how the special rum bars like that have that effect on people, and it's sort of opens your eyes to a world that most people don't know exists, because you go to your average pub or your average whiskey bar or something else, and I mean you're not even going to notice the rum selection in most places, do you know what I mean? Or they'll have like 5 shitty rums in the corner. It's like those kind of bars that they never pick, oh, we're only gonna have 5 rums, let's have 5 amazing rums. Like, no, let's have the 5 worst, cheapest, nastiest things that you'll never want to drink on their own. And why would you become a rum lover if that was all your selection? And then you have places like Rum Bar and like Smuggler's Cove and Trailer Happiness and all these incredible places around the world, and you walk in and you go, right, this is what rum looks like. Because and I'm fascinated to know how the rum world has evolved in your time, because obviously from going into Rum Bar in those early days to running it all now, and I think maybe even having something else in the works, possibly. Like, what have you seen, and what's been your experience of how the rum world has changed over those years?
Well, what's crazy, so the first time I sat down at Rumba was 2013, which is the year after it opened. And I didn't start working there until 2016. I begged for a job for the 3 years in between there. And nobody ever leaves that bar because it's so wonderful to work there. So Kate just kept saying, well, nobody's leaving, so I don't have any positions for you. And I had actually moved away to help open a little boutique hotel bar in Southern Oregon. And she called me up one day and was like, hey, we have a spot opening up for our bar manager position. Would you be interested? And I think it's just because I hounded her so much. And I remember I would send her these questions opening this little tiny hotel bar in Oregon. I was like, hey, if you could only have 10 rums on your shelf, what 10 rums would you have? Things like that. And she was just like, these are really hard but awesome questions. And she was like, I'm really glad that you're still engaged in rum and so committed to rum. And I was driving from Southern Oregon to Portland to buy rum, to bring it down to Southern Oregon to be to introduce this part of the state that had no idea. I mean, they were all into whiskey like everyone else is, and nobody had any idea. So when she offered me that job, I was like, yes, I will move tomorrow. Here I come. I quit my job and I left and I came to Rumba. And honestly, like the way that the rum world has changed, I come from like a very different perspective because I work in a bar that literally is only rum. So I think like the changes in rum might seem a little less huge to me because I'm like such a part of it every single day, and like how people drink rum, because people come to me to drink rum. It's not like a bar where we sell a lot of other spirits and people are all of a sudden starting to ask me about rum. Virtually everyone that comes into the bar is asking about rum. I will say that, you know, I think people are getting a little bit more educated about spirits in general, which has really helped rum a lot. And I think that what I do see is that there are more and more rums available in the market, which to me is huge. Like, you know, even the category of like rum agricole specifically has increased dramatically in Seattle, at least in Washington state, which I think is amazing. That tells me that there's desire to drink that by more people. So obviously they're gonna spend the money to bring those rums in. And I think that's awesome. My clientele has always been pretty educated and pretty like, you know, eager to drink new things. I do get a fair amount of like tourists that come in and they're like, I'll take a Jack and Coke. And I'm like, I don't have that. We're a rum bar. And then they say, oh, I'll take a Captain and Coke. And I'm like, I don't have that. We're a good rum bar. And then, you know, it turns into a conversation about that. And, you know, I've never had anybody walk out because, you know, we don't have something like that. My staff is very good at talking to people about, you know, converting over to rum or finding a rum drink that they're going to love. So to me, like, I think the rum world is definitely going in the right direction. I think there's a lot of issues, like kind of like what we were talking about earlier. You know, I do my best to educate people, but as we all know, the rum world is really hard to educate on because things are changing all the time and there's not a lot of transparency in a lot of places. And that makes it complicated and difficult. And we still have outdated terms like white and gold and things like that confuse consumers. So I think until we figure that out, you know, like the growth is going to be slower than everywhere else. But I do think that it is growing. And I think like bourbon was 10 years ago and tequila is now. It's like one of those cool spirits that, you know, you can go to a party and be like, oh, I know a lot about this one particular thing that no one else knows about. And it's like one of those like cool hit factors that I find, which is great. I love that. I love it when people get connected to a spirit and want to talk about it and want to know more about it. So that's my hope, at least.
What's do you have a, you know, because you have, I think it's over 700 rums you said at Rumba, which is an insane amount of rum to have. But is there an ethos behind, you know, what rums you're selecting for the bar, or is it just, you know, is it like, well, we want to have the most, so let's get them all in? Like, what's the sort of mindset that goes behind building a selection like that?
You know, if I wanted to have the most, I would have every flavor of Bacardi, but that's not my goal. My goal is to have, and to be honest, when I first started, we had like 500 rums. And I was told that was it. No more. We don't have room. Obviously we had room. I made room. And, you know, I've convinced my boss, because we keep getting like, you know, these awards and it keeps with talking points and things like that. And I think it's great. We also have a lot of clientele that, you know, have drank through vast majority of our collection and are kind of demanding like the newest and the coolest. So I think for me, the ethos is, and it's changed obviously because a lot more stuff is available now, but for me is it good? Does it taste good? That's like step number one. Step number two is like, what is the company like? Is this an ethical company? How are they doing things? You know, that's like a huge thing now, which I think is crucially important. And I just, you know, it's hard for me to, obviously nobody's perfect, and we are far away from perfection in the spirits world, but I try my best to avoid companies that are just outright not doing things the right way. and are pretty obvious about it. It's one of the more frustrating things. There's a lot of distilleries out there. Like unless I go and see what's happening, I don't know how they're doing things, but you know, I try my best to make sure that I am supporting ethical companies. The other things I look at is it cost effective? Does it make sense? I do have 700 plus rums, and quite a few of them have been sitting on my shelf for a while because, you know, they're expensive or they're not for everyone. Like I said, I have like a very niche clientele that will drink certain like really cool, crazy, high ester, funky, weird, out there rums, but that's like a small percentage of, you know, the people that walk through my doors. So is it cost effective and can I sell it? Is huge. Is it different? Like, is this going to be very similar to everything else I have on my shelf? Like, is it just going to blend into the back and, you know, none of my bartenders are going to grab it when somebody asks for something? You know, like Paranubes came onto the market and everyone was like on that, you know, it was like, this is cool, this is different, this is weird. It sold like crazy because all of my bartenders got super excited about it and they had all these cool talking points. And they were making like dirty martinis with it instead of olive juice and like getting all crazy with it, you know, which is really fun. And then, you know, like I said, how many people are going to like this? Am I going to be able to sell this? Is it going to, you know, does it do something for the bar? Is it going to make money for the bar? Is it going to help the bar? You know, there are some collector things that I have because I like to geek out and I know that they're not going to fly off my shelf, and that's fine. Like, that's cool. I put them on special, whatever. My nerdy rum people come in, or people from not Seattle that come to Rumba to drink rum will drink it. I know that. And I want to have those for those people. But as far as like my ethos goes, that's generally how I pick it. Oh, and is your brand rep a nice person? That's another one. Like, are you nice to me? Do we have a good time? Like, if I'm like, I don't know if I should carry this, and the brand rep comes in and it's just really fun and really awesome, I'm like, yeah, I'm carrying it. Put it on the shelf. So I think it's like, it's a full experience for me to carry what I carry. Sorry, Kevin just in the chat said, how do you feel about your logo? I love you, Kevin Obis. I've known Kevin since 2012, so yeah.
Good work, Kevin. You're doing it good. No, but it is true. It's every stage along that journey, isn't it? And you know, it can be. You know, I've had when I was working in bars, and you'd have the reps who'd come in like Friday night whilst you're 5 deep at the bar, and you're like, no. Start pulling out sample, like, but no,
absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, Kate has some really fun stories, and I shouldn't tell any of her stories, but you know, she has some really fun stories about some experiences that she's had with some reps where, you know, like she's had a couple reps come in and she knows more about the rum than they do, and she's like, I don't know, go learn about your product and come back, you know? So for me, I think that's kind of like the last on the list, but honestly, if I'm like wavering between, I've definitely made a choice to carry a rum because I like a rep, you know, where I'm like, kind of like, I don't know if I should carry it. It doesn't really fit in with the program. You know, it kind of hits all the other things, but the rep is really, really freaking nice. So I'm going to bring in this bottle and see what we can do with it. So.
Nice. So all the reps who are watching tonight, it's up to you to build our rum selections in those bars. Make sure they're awesome.
They're all very important.
But you make a really good point, because the education around the brand and what people know about it, whether it's at the distribution level or the customer level or the bartender level or anything, is on one level is kind of determined by how much information a brand puts out and how much digging people can do around that, and beneath all the marketing spiel and everything else going, and you're really on the front line of introducing people to rum, you know, without all, and this goes for all the bars and bartenders who are here in this group, without you there introducing people and suggesting to people, hey, instead of instead of that boring old whiskey, why don't you have this rum? Or you don't want gin? Come on, no, come on, vodka, get out of here. You know, getting people onto rum, introducing them to rum, and you know, maybe educating them a little bit or leaving them with a good experience of it, and maybe changing their perception of rum to what they may have had, you know, because most people haven't had a good introduction to rum when they first started. You know what I mean? It's like no one starts off usually drinking amazing rum early on. So, you know, on the front line, what would be your tips if, you know, as specialized as Rum Bar is, and obviously we've got some rum legends in the room tonight, but what would be your tips for someone who works at a bar that maybe wants to build their rum selection up or get more people into rum? You know, what do you find is the most effective in getting consumers to try more rum?
You know, this is, if I could do a TED Talk and just travel the world, this would be my TED Talk. That is how to talk to consumers about rum, because it's what I do every day. I will never ever claim to be the most knowledgeable person about rum, but I will tell you that I can talk to consumers about rum in a way that makes sense to them, that helps them understand why they should try it and why the notions that they came into my bar with are incorrect, and you know, why they should change their mind. And part of it is because the same thing happened for me, you know, like you said, I did not start my rum journey with Foursquare. I started it with Captain Morgan Spice Rum, and I hated it, you know. And honestly, even if I had started my journey with Foursquare, I don't know if I would have gotten on that rum train, because at that point in my life, like I said, I was like drinking appletinis, I was drinking sugar bombs of crap. So for me, like, you just have to gauge where each guest is at in their journey with alcohol in general. You know, some people aren't ready to just sip on a neat spirit, so maybe you need to ease them into it with a cocktail. That's why daiquiris are perfect, because it highlights rum when made well. It's very simple. It's refreshing. I've yet to meet a person that doesn't love a well-made daiquiri. So for me, it's like, I always ask my guests certain questions, like, you know, what do you normally, if you were not in a rum bar, what would you be ordering? If you were at your favorite bar, what would you be ordering? And then based on what they say, if they're like, oh, I really like old fashions, that one's easy. We have a rum old fashioned, you know, that we can go into that. And that's like a super easy journey from there. You know, you like old fashions, you're probably going to be easier to get on the, like, drinking rum on its own train very quickly. Like, that's easy. If they say, like, the vodka soda drinkers are the hardest to get on the rum train. You know, but that's when you kind of get into like those really light, filtered, not too aggressive rums, and you serve them with soda water and like a lime wheel, and that's great. Like, that's usually where I start. And then when people are like, okay, I like to sip on scotch. Okay, what kind of scotch? I like Highland scotches. Great. Let's get into aged agricoles. Let me try you on this. So it's kind of like understanding the concept of, like, you know, the flavor profiles of all the different types of rum and how they are similar to all the other types of spirits, because virtually everyone knows what tequila, mezcal, scotch, bourbon, gin, and vodka taste like. Everybody's had those. Everybody knows what those taste like. But rum, there is no way that, like, unless you work in a rum bar and are really into rum, you have tasted the vast craziness that is all of the flavor profiles of rum. So when I tell people that there is a rum out there for everyone, unless you don't like alcohol, there is a rum out there for everyone. And I have never had somebody leave my bar saying, you tried your best, but I'm not convinced. Like, never. I've never had anybody leave feeling that way. I've even had people come in being like, I like vodka sodas, and they leave loving rum agricole, because we just have a conversation and they're like, oh, I like vodka sodas, but I'm also really into weird food. You know, like, that's another question. Are you a chicken tenders orderer? Or do you go for like the octopus and the foie gras and things like that? Are you an adventurous eater? So if you're an adventurous eater, then maybe you're an adventurous drinker too. Let's just experiment. Let's see what you like. You like dirty martinis? Great. Let's try you on Parnubes, for example. So that's that's how I start talking to people. You got to start talking to them in terms that they know and that they understand, and avoid using words like ester and proof and still types and things like that, because they don't know. And then you can get into the different, like, then you can start nerding out with them once they've sat at your bar like 5 times and you're like, oh, you really like Barbados rum, which is a blend of column and pot still. Let's start working you on Jamaica. And then it's just like a journey from there. And I have this argument all the time with people. Some people are going to hate me for saying this. There is a place for the rums like Zacapa. There is a place for the rums like Diplomatico, because there are plenty of people that would not be drinking, Appleton Estate, Dorley's, Black Tot, all of these rums if they had not been introduced via those super popular, sweet. It's almost like giving somebody a rum old fashioned without having an old fashioned. It's like, it's a gateway rum. Thank you, Mike. It's a gateway rum. And I fully believe in those things. And there are steps to the different rums. Like I said, if somebody had given me Foursquare 2004 in 2012, I would have been like, I'm never drinking rum again. This is too much for me. I can't handle it. But I was eased into it, and now that it's one of the few rums that I own. So it's a journey, and you just have to know, how to get people there and how to talk to them. So I hope that answers your question.
I think you've got, I'm going to say 153 people on here who are keen for your TED Talk to go official.
That would be like a dream come true.
Anyway, if anyone knows anyone at TED, let's put that forward. But I think you make such a good point, and often within the upper echelons, if you like, of the rum society and the rum aficionados, there's this kind of like, well, unless it's 60% and bone dry and pot still and this, then you're not drinking real rum. And it's like, well, rum has so many bridges to every other category. There's so many ways to get into rum, and it doesn't have to be just through one type. I think that's one of rum's greatest strengths. And as you say, using whether it's a rum with sugar in it, whether it's a dry rum, whether it's a lighter rum, whether it's a heavy rum, whatever it is, as long as you're in the rum camp, I can always get you to drink a better rum. Like, that's not the hard part. Getting someone to go, do you like that? How about something better? That's super easy. Like,
absolutely.
But changing category from another spirit altogether, that's harder sometimes. You speak to whiskey people or vodka people or whoever they are, and it's like, it's a harder jump for them to make. So yeah, as long as they're drinking rum, we've got them. They're on our team. It's good.
That's the biggest hurdle. Honestly. Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
I want to talk. We're gonna move on to some more rum very shortly, but obviously I kind of want to talk about this past year and where we're going with the bar industry, because obviously there's so many people here work either in bars or connected to bars in some way, or are just really wanting to go and drink in a bar again. And I know everyone's at different stages in that. Obviously the last year has kind of completely upended the industry and changed things completely. And I'm curious to know, well, other than the devastating part, has there been aspects where you've adapted, evolved, changed things, and what have you done that's worked, and what do you see going forward? Is there a chance to build something better out of all of this as well?
Yeah, I think well, I'm really speaking from Seattle specifically. In Seattle, we're in a really unique position. We have a $13.69 minimum wage going up to $15 an hour. That has been happening for the last, I don't know, five years now. We've been slowly incrementally building up to $15 an hour. So we have already been, in a weird position with small restaurants and small businesses kind of struggling in that sense. And when the pandemic hit, there were so many closures, so many. A lot of them were closing because they were like hanging on by a thread anyway. And it was just kind of like, that's the hair that broke the camel's back. Then there's been a lot that have really done a good job of kind of like pivoting their, their models of, how we operate and things like that. My bar personally, Rumba, is closed, and we've been closed since March 15th. And part of that is because we are more of a bar than we are a restaurant. We are very small. It would just not make any sense for us to open at 25% indoor dining capacity. Plus, we don't have any windows. We care more, and we're luckily in a position to care more about the well-being of our staff and our guests than opening back up. And it's really hard, because I can't tell you how many questions and messages I get about people that are just desperate for Rumba to open back up. Because like I said, it's a home to so many people. I've never worked in a bar that has more ownership from like the clientele as well as the staff. So it's heartbreaking. But we are lucky to have another restaurant in our group, which has a really strong to-go aspect to it. And they've floated us and our company for quite a while, this entire year. And we've also been lucky enough to legalize to-go cocktails, which were not legal before. And not only that, but it looks like we have a bill pushing through to make them legal through 2023, which is also awesome. And I think that the Liquor Control Board here and like the Seattle Restaurant Association, just everyone in restaurants has kind of like had to completely rethink how we do restaurants. Seattle is a very well-known restaurant city, drinking city. We have some of the best bars and restaurants in the world here, and a lot of them are not going to survive, which is heartbreaking. And I think people are realizing a lot of things about how the restaurant industry is built and things like that. And I think that it might mean that, the way that we do business changes, the way we do service is going to change. Our other restaurant, Agua Verde, is order at a counter, get a number. You don't really have service. You don't have servers, which makes a lot more sense. And I think that that's going to be a model that's going to be moving forward. A lot more restaurants are going to adapt to that. And as far as like our canned cocktail program goes, it has saved us. I helped develop our canned cocktail program last year as soon as it became legal. We have a canning machine. We have a bunch of cans, which that's another thing. It's really hard to get those. A lot of times they're sold out. We've just had to change styles of cans. And we've gone really, really out of our way to make sure that they look beautiful and professional labels and things like that. And we're actually getting ready to expand that. So I think that's been huge for a lot of bars, is the to-go programs. And then as far as, supporting the people in bars, there's been so many opportunities for like social media events. I've done a couple like paid social media posts and things like that a lot of brands were, really trying to support bartenders as best they could. Creating content has been like just a really nice way to make a little bit of extra money. I know that a lot of brands have open tabs at different bars and restaurants for bartenders and service professionals. So, you go in and you're like, hey, I'm in the industry, and they have opened like $1,000 tab and you can order food. That has been insanely helpful and amazing to a lot of us, which I can't even fathom. Like the beginning of that, I had so many meals. I have roommates that were all service industry, and that we had so many meals thanks to like brands and things like that. And then just, care packages and all kinds of stuff like that. It's been really nice to see the community come together in this crazy, crazy time. And I'm not, like I said, my bar is closed, so I'm not there every day. I'm not experiencing it every day, but I know friends that are, and it's just been, it's hell for them. So I think the biggest thing is just like keep supporting your local like bar staff and tip them well, and be nice. Everybody just needs to be nice to everyone else. I think I'm extra nice now when I go out. That's the other thing. It's like I'm super nice to every service industry professional, because I know what they're going through. So
yeah, and it should go without saying, but it's worth repeating again, just how important, what everyone who's working in a bar or a restaurant here, just how much of an impact you make on people's lives. It's you may not realize it, you may not you know, you may not always feel appreciated when you're doing it, but I think having it taken away for so many people has really made people realize, you know, just how much everyone in this industry does and pulls together. And, you know, we as a brand wouldn't be here without the support of bars. And you know, for most people, it's without that aspect of life, so much is removed. So to everyone here who's working in a bar, I cannot wait to have daiquiris with you. It's going to be so good. I'm going to appreciate it even more when things finally reopen. But
Absolutely.
yeah, Jen, thank you so much. We're gonna keep on coming through, and we've got plenty more questions for you tonight, but I think we need another little drop of rum to get us going. So we're going to go on to our Guyana component next. If you want to pour yourself a little rum. Did everyone enjoy the Barbados one? Everyone digging the first one? Yes, good. See, nods, thumbs up, thumbs down. It's okay to have a favorite. For any parents out there, like, you know, much like your kids, you should always have a favorite rum. Like, just pick one out, whatever your favorite is tonight, it's okay. Tell them you love them. Tell them how good they are. We're going on to Guyana next. So this is actually a blend of two components that we use for Black Tot Finest Caribbean. So it's a sort of range from unaged right up to 5-year here. Pot and column again. It makes up 60% of our Black Tot Finest Caribbean blend. When I finally get to come over and do this with you, we'll actually bring you each individual component as well, so you can try the two side by side and actually taste each part of it individually as well. But yeah, this makes up really the heart of Black Tot Finest Caribbean, and kind of historically Guyana was such a heart of the original Navy tot as well, so it's a big part of it. So I hope you enjoy this as well. And I'd like to bring up our next co-host tonight, Mr. Sikhinda Singh. Hey Sukhinder, how you doing there? Have we cracked open any rare bottles yet?
No, Mitch, I'm behaving.
There's still time. Let's see how we go for the next hour. So Sukhinder, for you know, for those of you who might not know you from the rum world, obviously in the whiskey world, you are a huge figurehead of whiskey. You're the founder of Whiskey Exchange, founder of many brands, and Black Tot as well. And I'm curious to sort of share with the group, you know, a little bit of your backstory of one, how you started, but also how you got into rum as well as whiskey, because you know, people know for your whiskey, but I want to hear about your rum love as well.
Yeah, sure. Hi guys. Okay, so I started off in the industry from a very young age because my parents were the first Indians in the UK to get a liquor license, and that was, I'm not sure the exact date, it was 1971 or 72, so really going on to 50 years. So just really grew up in the family business, you know, helping out in the holidays, after school, all the rest of it. Just fascinated with, you know, everything, you know, gins, vodkas, rums. But I think the products which fascinated me in particular the most were
this is a little glimpse of Sukhinder in the early days, from the humble origins.
Yeah, I think that's probably early 90s. So, you know, you're going back nearly 30 years ago. And you can see by chance I'm standing in front of the rum section, and you can, I'm sure you'll recognize some of the products. So you got Rare Nephew on the right, ESA Fields, of course, Bacardi, Bundy, Cockspur. What else we got? Dooley's, Banana Rum, Mount Gay, Lemon Heart, Appleton. But you have to remember, we were a specialist, yeah. You know, we had literally everything that was available, we had. And that was pretty much all the rums available anywhere in the UK. That was it. You know, whatever, 10, 12, 15 rums, and that was it. So I learned about whiskey, I learned about rum, I learned about cognac. And then afterwards, I started collecting, you know, first miniatures, and then then went on to big bottles. And the thing I actually fell in love with initially was whiskey. Yeah. And through my whiskey journey, I really started to appreciate all spirits. You know, what I learned at a very early age is, you know, if you're going to drink something, you drink it because you like it, i.e. flavor. So today, the moral of everything we do in Elixir Distillers is flavor, flavor, flavor. It's about flavor, it's about texture, it's about mouthfeel. That's the most important thing. And, you know, whiskey is very broad. You know, there's hundreds and hundreds of whiskeys. You know, you've got over 120 different distilleries in Scotland. And now you've got all the bourbon distilleries in America. You've got all of Europe producing whiskey. And everything's doing well. Everything's doing okay. Everyone's got nuances, whether it's, you know, through distillation or through cask, or more for me, very importantly, through blending. Yeah, it's how you put all those components together. And I appreciated spirits for that reason. And, you know, I fell in love with rum. I fell in love with cognac. And to me, these are the three spirits, I guess, close to my heart even today: whiskey, rum, and cognac.
No vodka?
No.
Just checking. So I'd love to just share a little bit about the origin story of how you first, I guess, discovered Black Tot. I mean, you started the brand, but really the rum found you, right? So how did that first happen?
So this is about 15 years ago, Mitch. You know, I've been in our current format, which is the Whiskey Exchange. We're 21 years old. And I started the business and called it the Whiskey Exchange because I was keen on buying and selling in terms of old and rare products, you know, interesting products. You can see behind me, I've got some of my rums, cognacs on the other side. You know, I'm a collector by heart, and that's why we call the company the Whiskey Exchange. So we were one of the first, probably the first, you could say, drinks specialist, especially in the UK, possibly in the world, you know, who was buying and selling old and rare whiskey. This is going back 21 years ago. It wasn't very common at that time. And we were advertising, we were actively looking for stuff, and we built a reputation for, you know, having lots of rare stuff on our website. And people used to approach us, you know, with different categories, different products, different bottles. And by chance, it was an email from a chap saying, I used to serve in the Navy and I've got these demijohns of rum. And I was like, that's interesting. I've heard about rum and the Navy, but what are these demijohns? You know, did a bit of research and it was like, this looks interesting. So the guy, fortunately, was happy to bring the flagons to me, to the office. I had a look at them, found them fascinating, and I bought them. He had, I think, 2 or 3. And I just kept them and thought, this is a piece of history, this is lovely, just forgot about them. And then he told a friend of his, saying, you know, I sold mine to this chap. Go and see this chap if you want to sell yours. And so someone else phoned me and said, I've got 5. And I bought those as well. And they told the other friends. And, you know, all of a sudden I had these people, all sorts of people coming to me saying, we've got these flagons. And I'm like going, I've got 5 or 6 now, which is enough, you know, but if I want to buy more, I want to know what this liquid tastes like. So I grabbed a flagon, I opened it, tried it, and I was like, this can't be true. There's something wrong. This is too good. This is amazing. This is flavor. I'm getting layers and layers and layers of flavor. And if anyone has tried Black Tot will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's complex, you know, it's such a complex product. And I couldn't believe it. So I literally kept that flagon on my desk for a week and tried it every day just to make sure it was as good as I thought it was, you know, because I was like, this is too good to be true. I've never tried a rum like this. This is crazy. And then I took a sample, went to see a couple of friends who were big rum guys, and said, tell me what you think of this. I gave it to them blind, and they were like, this is amazing. Can we buy some? What is it? And I told them, and they were like, this is fantastic. This is amazing. So, of course, what I did was I bought the other flagons, and I delved a little deeper to understand, you know, how many flagons are there out there? You know, I asked these guys, these ex-sailors, to say, how much stock do you know of? And they go, look, we know that when the rum ration was stopped in 1970, the Admiralty had thousands of flagons. You know, they emptied the Solera system, they put them in these demijohns, and they put them into storage. So from what we understand, there's still some stock around. So
we've got just a couple of pictures here for anyone who maybe hasn't seen flagons before, seeing how they come. This is a couple of pictures of some of the boxes that we still have in our warehouse and how they come. So this is one of the older types, and there's all these little clues on the boxes that sort of tell us where and when they came from, and you have to crowbar them open, and there's these little, like, you can see the stamp on here, PKD 11/55, so it was packed in November 1955, you know. And these are what these flagons look like underneath. So 4.5 litre jars of rum, essentially. And they're it must have been pretty odd sort of seeing one of these for the first time.
It was, and you know what? I didn't initially know what the date stamp meant. So if you look at the picture on the right, it says 1270, which is December 1970. It was meaningless to me. I really didn't have a clue. And to be fair, some of the flagons had nothing on them, you know, and some of them had different dates on them. And I guess I wasn't that curious at the time until later. So I delved deeper into this, and I found out that the Royal Navy had sold everything they had to a company. I tracked the company down, found out that the company actually went into liquidation, went bankrupt, tracked down the company that was dealing with the liquidation. And honestly, my timing couldn't have been even more perfect, because when I phoned the guy who was dealing with this stock, he goes to me, he goes, Sukhinder, we sold the stock yesterday. He goes, we had a deadline to clear the stock, and we sold it yesterday. And I'm like going, really? Any chance? And, you know, any chance on bidding now? And so he goes, look, what type of price do you have in mind? So I made him an offer, and he goes, you know what, your price is so much higher than we've had, they're yours. So I ended up with like 2,000 flagons. Yeah, these are 4.5 litre. They call imperial gallons, 4.5 litre, 2,000 of them. You know, so I was happy, very, very happy. But I also found out that a parcel of stock had also been sold to a company in the USA, a company called Castle Brands. So I was like, if I'm going to do a project with these flagons, I want them all. You know, I don't want to sort of sit with 2/3 of them or 3/4 of them, and then someone tries to, you know, replicate the project we're doing. It doesn't make sense. So we approached Castle Brands, and we did a deal with them to buy, I think they had about 1,000 flagons. So we managed to buy the 1,000 flagons from them. And then it was like, what are we going to do? So, you know, to sell them as 4.5 litre demijohns just wasn't practical. It didn't make any sense. You know, it was too much liquid. It was going to be too expensive. Then I came up with the idea that, you know, the day that the rum ration ended, being known as Black Tot Day, was a beautiful name. And it wasn't registered. We registered the name. And then we went on our journey of sort of marrying these flagons. Yeah. So, you know, we married thousands of these flagons. And but the thing is, one thing we noticed was there was like 2 or 3 distinctive marks on the flagons. For me, that was my initial, you know, guide to saying, what is the difference? So, you know, we tried them, and we found 2 or 3 different styles of liquid. Yeah. What I didn't realize at the time was that they were from different eras. You know, some were from, as you say, 1950, 55, 70, 62, whatever. And now understanding a lot more about the history of rum in the British Navy, you realize that that rum tot, or the rum blending, rum solera, and the supply of rum to for the solera changed, you know. So, you know, in the early part, so say 50s and before, they used Jamaica, for example, possibly a lot of Jamaica. But actually, when you go after that period, you know, Matt would probably know more, they didn't use Jamaica at all. But predominantly, they used rums which from the British colonies. So, you know, Trinidad, Barbados, Guyana, Australia, St. Lucia, you know, all the islands you can think of. And really the blend changed. It was a living, breathing solera where, you know, depending on what came in, it would change the components of the solera and the flavor profile of the solera. So I think what's really interesting is these demijohns are different, yeah? And it took us literally a year to get this, our blend, our marriage, you know, to a level which I thought, this is delicious. So, you know, we used a little bit more heavy, then we used a little bit more light. We just had to balance it until we got to a point where we felt this is beautiful, yeah? And
this is for the original Black
consignment. This is the first product we launched back, what, 11 years ago? The last consignment, you know, and for me, we called it last consignment, Mitch, because it was a last consignment. You know, this is the last of the rum ration. This is the original British Navy rum. And when it's gone, it's gone. It's as simple as that, you know. And now, you know, it's selling really, really well. What you have to remember is when we launched this 11, 12 years ago, there was no such thing as premium rum. You know, we launched this product at whatever, 600, 650 pound a bottle, whatever, US, $1,000 a bottle. That was way ahead of the time, you know, but I believed in the liquid because for me, the product was sensational. You know, as I said, I live and breathe whiskey. I do a lot of cognac. I do a lot of rum. But for me, this was unique. It was something so special that it deserved, you know, the price tag and the respect it needed. And I believe that, you know, it would take time. But the thing is, I wasn't in a hurry. It wasn't a case of we've launched these, you know, 10,000 bottles. We need to sell them in 2 years. I didn't care if it took me 20 years to sell because I knew when it's gone, it's gone.
And you make a really interesting point because obviously in the rum world, we look at a bottle like that and go, even now we go, oof, okay, yeah, that's up there. That's expensive for a rum. But then if you like, every now and then I'll do a whiskey tasting. I'm like, yeah, so it's a blend that we sort of was topped up continuously for 100 years and half the distilleries don't exist anymore and everything was shipped in cask and we can't ever recreate this rum again and this is what was in it. And whiskey people look at that and they go, is that all it costs? Exactly.
Like,
I don't know what that blend would look like, what the equivalent would be, but it would just be, it would be several zeros after it, I'm guessing, you know. So,
you're right. You're absolutely right.
It's you know, it's a good time to build up a rum collection, even now, even you know.
And you know, following on from that, of course, you know, when we launched this product, there were a lot of rum fanatics out there, but you know, they were like, really, $1,000 a bottle? Do you not have anything cheaper? And we were like, no. We're thinking about it, but you know what? It took me a long time to decide what that product should be, that entry-level product, you know, which is what we're going to try, which is the finest Caribbean. We're trying the components, you know. And for me, again, the rum market was very different to what it was 5 years ago, to what it was 2 years ago, to what it is today. And, you know, it's honestly, it's changing so quickly. And for me, generally for the better for the category. You know, there's the more products, the more people will try, the more people, as you say, will get into the category. And once they're in the category, you talk to them, you educate them, you know, so yeah.
And you make a really good point about getting people into the category. And obviously we've seen over the last year with all the virtual shows, and even when there were physical shows still, you know, rum starts to sort of like, rum always finds a way, do you know what I mean? Like if it's a whiskey show or whatever's going on, there'll always be a rum stand somewhere, do you know what I mean? Where all the parties happening and daiquiris are pouring and obviously the fashion's better. But like, how are you are you finding more whiskey people are coming over to the rum world? Are you convincing them, or what do you do to encourage those whiskey lovers to expand their horizons and get out of just that box?
I'd say, yeah, definitely yes. Lots of reasons. One of which, whiskey is actually getting very, very expensive now. You know, the demand for whiskey has been huge. Whiskey generally is an age product with an age statement, you know, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever. You know, less so in rum. It's happening now with the single cask stuff, the small batch stuff. But I think it's for people like us in the industry. You know, I'm a retailer. We're a good retailer. We've got 3 shops. We've got the website. We supply the most important bars, hotel bars, restaurants in the UK. You know, so we touch all points, yeah. And it's for us to educate, talk to our consumers, talk to our customers, and just, you know, guide them through that. We all know rum it's confusing. It's a category which to regulate or sort of to categorize is not easy, you know, it's really not easy. And the main reason is because rum is produced, you know, globally. Or even if you take the Caribbean alone, there's so many countries in the Caribbean that you can't pinpoint one. Unless the Caribbean get together and say, we're gonna, you know, lead the categorization together jointly, it becomes difficult. And, you know, we've put together a little categorization, you know, is it perfect? No. Does it's a start, I think is the way to put it, you know? So for me, education. When we put the product together, especially Finest Caribbean, you know, I looked at it as a whiskey guy, you know? Why do I drink whiskey? I drink whiskey for flavor. You know, Jen made a beautiful point about cuisine. I approach spirits in exactly the same way. You know, people's taste buds are changing. You know, if you go back 10, 20 years, the cuisine was very simple. Today, you've got ceviche, you've got Japanese, you've got, you know, you name it, every country. People want to explore flavors from every country of the world. Before, it was pretty boring. It was Indian and Chinese and you know, classic European, you could say, and that was it. You know, and now
it still is where I grew up. I went there the other day.
So I think if people are up to these challenges of flavor, it's the same for what we drink. You should drink what you like, yeah. And I think the other approach I took was, and a lot of people forget this, even if you look at whiskey, if you look at single malt whiskey, you know, you think, single distillery. But it is a blended product at the end of the day, because you're mixing lots of casks, you're mixing, you know, bourbon casks with sherry casks, with refill casks, with, you know, wine casks or whatever. So you're blending to create your single malt, 10-year-old or 12-year-old, 15-year-old. So I think, you know, people look at single malt and think, no, that's a single distillery, but they don't. They sometimes forget it's a blended product. But for me, over the last 20 plus years, what I've learned is how you put products together. You know, so with my colleague Oliver, who unfortunately is not with us today, who would have been, because his wife is expecting and supposed to be giving birth today or tomorrow, any
We
day now.
almost had a very different kind of launch event tonight. So.
It would have, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I worked very closely with Ollie. Say, look, we got to approach it. You know, he knew nothing about rum until probably 2 years ago, apart from, you know, a handful of brands. And I said, look, this is we're gonna go through all the different styles like we're doing now. And, you know, for me, I like all the countries. You know, that's why we're using the components. But I feel you put them together, you get layers and layers and layers of flavor, which is what I enjoy in whiskey, enjoy in, you know, product. And that's what we did. That's what we try to do.
I think it's one of the great luxuries we have in the rum world, especially as blenders, where we can pick and choose different countries and flavor profiles, and we can say, yeah, we want some agricole, we want some Australian rum in there, we want Fiji, we want this flavor, this flavor, this flavor. It's like having the ultimate sort of spice rack to be able to just pick and choose different flavors and throw them all together. And it's a wonderful luxury that we have that no other spirit category has, you know, not nearly in the same way or the same precedence. And I think it's a blessing and a curse, because the blessing is we can put together these incredible flavors and all these different layers and everything there. The curse is that often you lose the sense of provenance, you lose the identity of those individual components or what people are putting together. And one of the reasons why we made this tasting pack the way we have and what we've sent to everyone today is, I think our job as blenders is not to wash over the component stage, say, oh, well, you know, it was nothing before, but now look at what we've put together. It's, you know, our job as blenders should be to highlight and celebrate each individual country and region. Say, look, these are all individually amazing. It's like a chef is only as good as his ingredients, you know, and maybe you'll love Barbados the most, or Guyana or Jamaica, or whatever it is. But, you know, together we've put together this beautiful thing, but also here's what we built. Here's the individual components. So,
but I think, remember, Mitch, for us with Black Tot and with the history of rum, you know, the Royal Navy rum being a blended product, I think it was only right for us to have created a product like this, you know, with Finest Caribbean and 50th anniversary, which we'll go on to. So, I mean, with Finest Caribbean, of course, we took, you know, we looked at what the original naval rum was and what the heart of it was, which was Guyana, Jamaica, Barbados, a few of the other islands. But we took the heart of it, we sort of reversed engineered it and sort of said, you know what, yeah, it's a great rum, but is it a rum for every day? You know, we didn't want to replicate Last Consignment into a baby version. It didn't make sense to me. You know, we wanted to create a rum for today. We wanted to take the components and blend them in a different way to create something which was easier drinking, you know, still complex, still layers of flavor, you know. And then going on to 50th anniversary, that logically, you know, was a homage to Last Consignment, but with the freedom to use whatever we wanted. You know, it's literally a dream come true to say we can go and buy the most tastiest rums, individual components of these superb rums, and try and put them together in a way that we will create a product which is a tribute to Black Tot, Last Consignment. Again, with the 50th anniversary blend, we didn't want to create a replica of Last Consignment. It just didn't make sense. And actually what we've created is something halfway between Finest Caribbean and Last Consignment. You know, it's still got the layers of flavor, but it's also got those big, dark flavors which come from Last Consignment.
Yeah. Well, we're getting up to that one, but for now, let's pour some more rum. Let's go on to our Jamaican component now. So this is our final individual country component of Black Tot Finest Caribbean. This is 100% pot still now, a 3-year from Long Pond, all tropically aged. And this just makes up 5% of the Black Tot Finest Caribbean blend. So it's only a little touch, but just enough to give a little little funk, a little hogo in there as well. So enjoy. And thank you very much, Sukhinder. I'm gonna bring you back on very, very soon, but I'd like to bring on our next speaker as well, Mr. Cocktail Wonk himself, Mr. Matt Pietrek. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well. It's a real pleasure to sit here and watch my friends talk about rum and have Rumba as my backdrop. So
it's I love it. I'm sure most people here know your writing through Cocktail Wonk, and one of the, for me as a rum lover, one of the ultimate resources that I immediately dive into in case when someone asks me a question I'm not sure on something, I'm like, let me just check here first. All right, okay, cool. And you've done an incredible body of work for the rum world, so thank you for that. But I'd love to know your connection to Rumba, because I know it has a very special place in your heart as well.
Yes. As some of you know, I used to live in Seattle. And I feel in some ways that like Rumba and I grew up together after I sort of got caught the Tiki bug circa 2008. I started growing my rum collection, asking questions, dealing with the State Liquor Control Board that wasn't bringing good rums in. And right as I was sort of like hitting that inflection point of like, I have 40 rums now, Rumba opened. And I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. And so, I went there and there was like 250 rums at the time. And I remember thinking like, I will never have this many rums in my collection, but I'm going to try. And I'm glad to say that now I do have more than that rums in my collection. But it was great to have a bar like Rumba that was bringing in rums that I hadn't seen before, basically providing somebody who would provide these rums so that importers or distributors would bring them into the Washington state market. And, over the years that, I got to know Kate and Jen and Jim Romdahl and Travis, all the people. And, in some ways it felt like it was like an extension to my own home of this is the bar that I've spent the most time in a chair, sitting at the bar, staring at all the rums there of any bar in the world. So it's a sentimental place for me.
Yeah, wonderful. I think there's nothing better than finding that bar that feels like home. Where it's a wonderful thing, no matter where you are in the world. So, Matt, I want to, I guess, dive straight in. I'm conscious that we will probably between us quite happily end up talking for many hours if we wanted to. But I want to dive straight into some of the research you've been doing into Navy rum, because we've had a lot of conversations over the past year, and I know you've done exceedingly extensive research into the category. You've been writing a book about Navy rum. I'm curious to sort of know, one, what that journey's been like, but also like what your perception of the category has been, and whether it's changed much from what you thought Navy rum was at the start to what you know it to be now.
Sure. Yeah. So my introduction to it was, well, let me back up. I, like many people, I had been sort of somewhat intrigued by it. I love the idea and the history and the romance of it. And I had read various articles, and you would hear it's a blend of Jamaican, Barbados, Trinidad, and Guyana rums, and the Edward Vernon story and grog. You hear all these things, brands like Hussars and so forth would tell you this is what it is, and you're like, well, I don't really have the ability to dig much deeper, so I guess I'll accept that for what it is. And then in 2018, after 30 years in the software industry, I decided to quit my job because I was tired of making too damn much money writing software, and I wanted to go make a tenth of that, but doing what I loved, which was writing and educating about rum. And my wife and I, Carrie, who's the co-author of Minimalist Tiki, we had this this idea of like, we're going to write this Tiki book, which we did, and self-published. But about a month into it, and we had this crazy deadline, like we need to get this done in 6 months so that we can move to New Orleans so my wife could go to grad school. So we had this crazy deadline to write and put together Minimalist Tiki. And about a month into it, I got an email from Plantation Rum, basically Angelique and Alexander Gabriel, basically like, we have a great project for you. And I was just like, no, I don't have time, but no, okay, hold on. There's an opportunity here to basically get paid to go study this topic, to really dive in to, not, it wasn't just Royal Navy rum, but also London dock rum, basically the history of rum of the, the British Empire, 1650 to 1970. And so I was like, I don't have time for this. So, okay, yes, I'm gonna go do this. And so I basically said to like throw more work on Carrie to go write the Tiki book, or to help me finish the Tiki book. But I sort of like, okay, where do I start? And it was like, I don't even know where the sources are. And being a computer nerd, I knew where to start digging and finding stuff. And basically what I learned, among other things, is that the British love to document stuff, and they love to write books. They love to make charts of and graphs of rum exports from St. Lucia to Barbados in 1874. And luckily we live in an internet age where a lot of these old books have been digitized. But then I also learned that a lot of things were written up in newspapers of the era, that 1700s, 1800s. So I spent since I started this, I spent probably months, if not years, of my life looking at old newspapers, and reading articles, and scanning for words that I know are going to yield something interesting. And so I started going down that path, and then at some point we took a trip to London. And I remember, I think it was one of the first times I met you, was in London on that trip. But I remember, distinctly walking into the British National Archives, and being able to look through their catalog, and I'm like, this document sounds amazing, having no idea what that experience was going to be. And at the end of the day, they bring you here's a big old folio of documents, and go nuts. And I remember flipping through there and like, oh, this is a letter from 1687, basically okaying the sale, or okaying it being okay to substitute Jamaican rum for brandy for this admiral's troops in Jamaica at the time. And it was just an incredible sense of history, not again, not just a Navy part of the story, but even the British, the London dock rums, and so on and so forth, and just holding so many historic documents in my hand, and not having time to read them at the time, because we were like, okay, we have to scan everything, get a good image of it so we can take them home and read them later at home. And
I think that's one of the things, Matt, which really strikes me about all the work you do and all the articles you put out, because obviously we, and as I'm sure, as I'm seeing in many people in the comments, we see your articles come through and we get to read it, and it's 10 minutes of us going, oh, cool. Okay, that's another little rum fact. Right. The hours of research that goes into finding that one rum fact, covering that little thing, and getting the chance to, I feel very lucky. I've had a chance to read a sort of early draft of your Navy book that's coming out, and the stuff you've uncovered there, and the amount of legwork that's in there. I'm so glad that you did it and I didn't have to, because it just takes off so much at the start. But I'm really curious to know as well, what were some of the biggest maybe myths or misconceptions or surprises that you found along the way in your research, where it's like, that's not how I thought it was.
It's like I started from this notion of, here's what I think I know, and then over time I rapidly realized that almost everything I know is wrong, or at least partially wrong. And the biggest picture thing I learned is, there's a perception that there's a British Navy recipe. Here it was this much of this rum handed down, from 1655 or 1740, and not at all the case. And I basically started learning about basically different eras of it, that prior to around 1800, it was basically they were contracting out to have rum and other provisions delivered to ships. After 1800 or so, they said we're going to bring this in house. We're going to start blending this in house. And then, at some point I realized, oh, they're not just doing it in one place. They're doing it in three different places. There's Deptford in London, Plymouth, and Portsmouth. I learned what a victualling yard is. Basically, the place where they provision ships and other Navy depots. I had to learn what a victualling yard was, and from about that 1800 era on, it was like, okay, we kind of know how much rum we're buying, but we don't really know what they're buying. And so there was a real surprise there, is because when you would find some details about, yea verily, Lemonheart and Sons, and I get these names. I recognize these names. Lemonheart and Sons sold, took the contract to supply 50,000 gallons of rum to the Royal Navy to be delivered at Deptford, and you're like, it just didn't say Jamaican rum or Guyana rum. It just, maybe you said Leeward Island rum at some point, but there wasn't that level of specificity about it. And in fact, when I was in the British National Archives, I found the ledgers, the actual rum purchase ledgers from 1810, 1812, 1813, and I'm like, almost like Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is going to be the answer to all my questions. And I opened it up, and it was a bunch of transactions, and it was like, this merchant on this date, this much paid for it. There's no notion of where it was from. It was sort of like, it was just rum. And so that was a big eye opener for me there. Another one, by the 1840s or so, it was like, wait, I'm seeing maybe rum purchases from the East Indies, that basically rum made in India and Southeast Asia had made its way into the Navy blend. I'm like, okay, that's not at all the story we've been told. And then around that same era, you start finding this was, there was this series of vats that was like several dozen vats. That even then, 1840, there were 250,000 imperial gallons of vats, and they were flowing. The rums were flowing between each other. And this is why I think Sukhinder mentioned the Solera system. It was not a Spanish Solera, but this notion of we have vats and we put new rums in and they blend together and we take rums out. That was a huge surprise to learn that kind of stuff. And then even in the 20th century, it's crazy stuff during World War II, the British Empire, normally the British Navy tried to buy from their own sources, buy from Demerara or Guyana primarily, but also Trinidad. That in the middle of World War II, it's like, we can't buy enough rum. And I guess there's the Jamaican rum, and it's like, we're really trying to hold off. We don't really want this Jamaican rum, but I guess we need to buy it. We will. But before they took that step of buying Jamaican rum, they actually purchased Cuban rum and Martinique rum. So there's at least a year or two during World War II where two very unusual, not British Empire sources went into that, we're into the Navy blend. And and again, as we get later along through the history, we sort of have more concurrent records and more idea of what's going on, and we start looking at there's definitely a point here in time where they're saying, we don't want Jamaican rum. It doesn't meet the taste of our, the perception of what our sailors want. And
so it was essentially too funky for them, right? Or too intense?
Yeah. I mean, they didn't say funky, but there was definitely, I think the Navy was kind of had to sidestep some, maybe some political, questioning, but essentially they were like, Jamaican rum is so good and so expensive that we can't afford to use it for the British Navy rum. And in the end, during World War II, they pulled some in. And even there, it's surprising. It's not it was Long Pond rum or Hampton rum, or there was no notion. I literally have copies of the documents of like negotiations between, you know, the British government, the American government, and which is a whole other fun story. British government, American government, Cuban government, and in all of these discussions about grind rum, it's not about like how funky it is or what mark it is or anything like this. It was, you know, in the end of the day, it was everything sort of different than how we imagine it happening, you know. And then as well, you know, in the 1940s era, it's like they're definitely dealing with Edie and F. Man. Like, yes, okay, this is part of the story that I recognize. But if you try to go back in time, you're like, you know, early 1800s, I don't see Edie and F. Man in there. Like, I'm looking really hard and I'm not seeing, you know, the story we're being told. I'm not seeing it. And then, you know, and I guess the last thing I'll wrap up there is just this notion of like Navy rum is 57%. And it's like, no, they were very clear. Like, I have document, like a fantastic document. Basically, in 1967, British Navy basically wrote their own history of the British Navy, of the Royal Navy rum. It's in the National Archives. And it was very clear as day. It says that, you know, since 1866, we have issued rum at 4.5 degrees under proof. Proof being 57% ABV, 4.5% under proof is 45.5%. And lo and behold, what's the strength of Black Tot last consignment? 54.3% ABV. So, you know, again, there's just all these different misconceptions and half truths and just sort of.
Matt, sorry, you said it was 45.4.
Yeah, 54. I'm sorry if I did. I'm sorry. 54.3 for what the last.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, what we discovered was that, you know, we bottled these demi-johns after 40 years in flagon. Yeah. And that means in 40 years, they lost 0.2%.
Yeah, that amazes me. And I'm super glad to see that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's good empirical evidence. It's like, here's what the Navy says, and then here's you know, we actually have some of this rum and we did it. So, yeah, so it's great proof of that.
And another really interesting point is the fact that I think no one realizes that the scale of the rum ration, yeah,
right.
As you said, I know you gave some figures, whatever, 250,000 gallons or whatever. Yeah. That was one supplier. Right. But I think if the rum ration today was a brand, you know, like whatever, like Captain Morgan, it would be one of the biggest selling alcohol brands in the world.
Right.
That was the scale of the rum ration.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and what I've come to realize is that if you look at the actual amount of rum imported into the UK, like in the late 1800s, and then you look at how much was actually went to the Navy, you start realizing, you know, it was the Royal Navy was the largest consumer of rum in the UK, which is interesting enough in itself. But more so, you're when you think about the state of the rum industry in that time and that it was struggling, you know, beet sugar and all that kind of stuff, you realize that in some ways, the Royal Navy helped keep the British colonial rum industry alive for a very long time. And without them consuming rum, it may have gone under. We might not have rum as we know it today without the Royal Navy.
Right.
They did like a drink, and I think we should pour another. So let's pour our Black Tot Finest Caribbean, and to get you in the Navy rum mood, I'm going to play you all a little video we found from the archives. I think, Matt, this is one of the ones that you actually uncovered from HMS Victorious, and sort of gives you a little insight into what the daily rum ration on the ships used to be like back in the day.
The daily rum ration was introduced in 1687. In those days, the sailors drank it neat. Then, in 1740, for better or worse, along came Admiral Vernon, who watered it down, and the mixture became known as grog.
How good was the music back then?
Mhm.
A good sailor is supposed to be able to knock it back in one go. He needs more practice. He'll get it, never fear. Ah, there you are.
One of my favorite parts of that video is just how responsible drinking has not been invented at this stage yet. It's just like, aha, that's how you drink it. It was, you know, and there you see the issuing of the daily rum ration every day around 11 a.m. where the rum would be mixed down with water in what we call the grog tub. You know, you can see it's not very COVID friendly the way they were doing it, but it's, you know, they dish it out to all the sailors, get it out to the crew. And it was part of daily tradition. It was part of a tradition officially from 1731, when the Navy first put in code that every person was entitled to either 8 pints of beer per day or half a pint of overproof rum per day, which is a healthy amount of rum to be drinking when you're trying to sail a ship. And they gradually, you know, watered it down and
I was gonna say, like, it only took Edward Vernon 9 years to realize that this was a mistake.
Yeah,
like,
maybe let's water that down a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna force you to water it down. And then the part that nobody remembers about this is that, like he said, like, they that are good husbands of their resources may also purchase lime and sugar to make it taste better. So I'd like to think, you know, the British Navy, you know, we're sort of making the first daiquiris.
It's a lovely idea, isn't it? I would definitely be on that ship. But I'd love to bring all of our guests up on the screen now, because we're gonna talk and discuss about these last couple of blends as well. But so if you haven't already, please pour yourself Black Tot Finest Caribbean, or the final blend that's marked on the label if you have the rum pack there. So this is our blend of those 3 initial rums that you tried. And to give you an idea, this for me is a very important part of what we do with Black Tot, because I always thought it was kind of a bit ridiculous when blends or people selling you blends sort of don't really tell you what's in the rum. And I think it's very important you do know what's in the rum and what makes it up. So this is the sort of these are the components, these are what you've just tried, this is everything going on in the rum. Is that coming up on your screen there? Can you see?
Yep.
The breakdown? Yeah, cool. So you can see the full breakdown of what's going on there. Obviously we've tried those 2 Guyanese components together tonight. But 4 components that we blend, that's the percentage of each blend, tropically aged, the congeners or volatiles in it, bourbon casks, all molasses. We don't chill filter it. There's no sugar added, but you do get trace elements from the barrel, obviously. And yeah, and that's everything that's in this rum, which I think is, you know, I would like to see, I hope we see more rums talk about, you know, the individual parts of it, because there's nothing worse for me, certainly when I was on the bar looking at a rum blend and going, I have no idea what this is, and trying to sell it to someone, or trying to say, oh, can you get all these notes? Like, oh yeah, where's that coming from? I have no idea. It's Caribbean.
West Indies rum. What is that?
But for me,
it's a fun game. It's a really fun game to play with guests, especially ones that have been coming to the bar for a long time. If we have a blend, we don't know what it is, I'll sit there and we'll sip it together, and I'll be like, I don't know, this could be, I'm thinking this is Hamden. Like, this is definitely Hamden in here. And then, like, let's think about really where this is coming from, and like how old this is and what it could possibly be. It's probably Foursquare. It's actually, trust me, I would much rather every single rum have this but there is an element of fun when it's slow to sit there and just be like, what could this be, this blend? But this would be quintessential to selling to 95% of my clientele for sure.
I think, well, I hope it's, again, it's one of those things where I hope it does inspire people to actually explore those individual regions as well. I hope it goes back and forth where you look at, okay, this is what they all taste like together. Let me try them individually. And if you love them individually, go, wow, okay, this has all those parts that I love. Let me try the blend as well. So, for me, this is how we as blenders really help elevate the rum world and still talk about provenance, but also, this luxury we have to blend it all together. But Jenna, I'd love to know from your side in the rum bars, because obviously I think as bartenders, and certainly when really up until I started looking more into Navy rum and the history of it, in my mind, it was like, well, the people who first blended rum together were Don Beachcomber and Trader Vic. It started in the 1930s, 40s, started with zombies, started with all these kind of these classic drinks that we know, because we don't have 3 whiskey cocktails or 4 gin martinis, but we do have 5 rum, 4 rum, 3 rum drinks, and house blends and house rum blends and all these different kind of things going on. And it's so, we take it so much for granted in the rum world. But I'm curious to know from your side, how much relevance does a rum blend still have? Is it something you still push for, or do you prefer single islands, or like where does it come in handy?
Oh my gosh, do we do rum blends at Rumba? We have so many rum blends. It's insane. We definitely adhere to, I'm also like 3 rums deep at this point, and I haven't really been drinking all pandemic. So now I'm getting like, this is real fun for me now. But rum blends are everything at Rumba. We have a daiquiri blend. We have a Mai Tai blend. We have a Tiki blend. We used to have something called Super Blend that we use for our old fashioned.
Oh, I want Super Blend. What's that?
The Super Blend was daiquiri blend and Tiki blend with Mount Gay Black Barrel to combine the two that we use for all of our our rum old fashions. We do the same Super Blend, but we don't blend it in one bottle anymore. We just decided to take that bottle out of the well and just blend the daiquiri and the Tiki blend. But for me, my introduction to working with rum was through Rumba. So obviously I was immediately introduced to blends, and we definitely adhere to the whole concept of what 1 rum can do well, 5 can do better. And I think we in the rum world are unique in the sense that, we have so many different rums that embody all these different elements. It's like, why would you only want to just drink one in a cocktail? Why not pick and choose and get to hand select how your drink tastes? So for our daiquiri blend, for instance, which has it's constantly evolving for sure. But it makes sense for multiple reasons. We get the flavor profile we want, and on top of that, we can get our daiquiri appropriately priced, because a lot of the rums that we would love to use are too expensive to use in one of our cheapest cocktails. And we want the daiquiri to be cheap because we want lots of people to drink them. So for us, it's, we take a backbone and then we build on that. And I take a backbone of Puerto Rican rum. I want something that can stretch that daiquiri, that's the majority of it, right? Something that's really chill, really mellow, delicious, a little bit of age on it. And then I build around that with Barbados rum and Jamaican rum, because I want just a tiny bit of that funky ester quality to my daiquiri. And then I want that really round mouthfeel that you get from Barbados. So, tinkering, I've gotten a really good daiquiri blend that embodies the flavor profiles, the mouthfeel, plus the price point that I want.
My mouth is just filling up with saliva as I think of this daiquiri. I'm just
it's very good. And
any Martinique rum?
Not in the daiquiri blend, but we do put Martinique rum in the Mai Tai blend. Like I said, we also have the Mai Tai blend. The Mai Tai blend, we do our best to adhere to like the OG Mai Tai recipe. Although I know a lot of people say that there's not actually rum agricole in the original Mai Tai, we think that it tastes best with a little bit of aged agricole. So we take aged agricole, as well as we've been house barrel aging Ray and Nephew for almost the inception of Rumba. We have it kind of on what we call a Solera system right now. So, and honestly, when we reopen, our house barrel aged Ray and Nephew is going to be the best it's been in a long time, because it's been sitting in that barrel for a year now, which is, I decided to leave it in there because I was like, let's just leave it. It tastes delicious. So we do that. We have aged rum agricole as well as unaged rum agricole in that. And we blend in our Tiki blend to give it like this really rich kind of molasses character in the bottom. And again, we've like taste tested that countless times to make sure that our Mai Tai is amazing. And, you know, the important thing with Tiki drinks especially is you want to make sure that that rum really cuts through all of those flavors and syrups and juices and things like that. And then our Tiki blend is rich, dark, heavy, molasses forward, things like Karuba and stuff like that. And we blend that together to create our Tiki blend. And then, you know, most of our Tiki cocktails are a blend of all of those things. So we use them like crazy. And I don't know what we would do without the blending. And I think rum, unlike a lot of other spirits, you know, like there's a lot of like cheaper, delicious bourbons on the market that you can use for a household fashion, but there's not anything like that for rum that's cheap, delicious, and versatile, you know, that works for everything. So, you know, I don't want to use Smith & Cross for everything. It's too high proof for a lot of cocktails and too funky for some, but I don't want to use Don Q and Yeho for everything, because that's not going to cut through passion fruit and orange juice and bitters and all kinds of stuff. I want all of those things. So to me, Rum Blends, we wouldn't be Rumba without our Rum Blends for sure.
And Sukhinder, you talk a lot about layers of flavor, and you talk about this all the time with various spirits, but especially with blends. And it's interesting hearing, you know, you can see, you can almost visualize like the flavors coming together as Jen describes them, and how she's rounding out these flavor wheels and putting them together for different drinks. Like, what do you look at when you're putting together these flavor blends with Ollie and what you're putting together? What kind of aspects are you looking at flavor wise?
I think it depends on the product. With Finest Caribbean, you know, it was a simplistic blend, but fresh, easy drinking, very important, pure, no color, no caramel. One of the reasons we bottled it at the highest strength is because we would not have to chill filter it. Yeah. What I strongly believe is, when you chill filter anything under 45, 46%, with climate change, when you put it in a cold environment, the fatty solubles in the liquid, the fats in the liquid turn soluble, yeah, and they dissipate. So they become really, you can see them. The liquid becomes cloudy, yeah? You need to have the highest strength for them. And actually, it's those fats which actually give you texture and give you a lot of flavor. It's not just, you know, the cask and the this or that. It's actually what's in the liquid. That's what gives you flavor, you know? It's like, I guess, I don't know, again, you talk about food, you know, when you put butter in something, it just elevates that dish to a different level. You know what I mean?
Better. Yeah.
So in principle, it's the same. Yeah. Everything has got these fatty acid, solubles.
So it's almost like we do that in bars anyway. We're trying to fat wash everything. It's like, well, just don't take the fats out in the first place. And
exactly.
We'll be halfway there.
Exactly.
And Matt, with, you know, looking at the history of the Navy blend and what you've sort of uncovered, obviously we, you know, I think most of us, certainly myself growing up through the bar world, we're sort of told, oh, the Navy blend is, you know, Trinidad and Guyana, or it's this or it's that.
Jamaica, Barbados, Guyana, Trinidad, like the holy quad trinity, whatever the word is.
It tends to be whatever the brand is that's selling it, that's the authentic thing for it. But as Sukhinder mentioned, through the flagons over the years, like it kept evolving, it kept changing, it kept moving in different directions. So can you give us a sort of good, I guess, summary of what the Navy blend actually was?
Right. Yes. So if you know, what I have is a bunch of data points. Is I have, you know, the idea of like what they were buying. I do actually have some Navy purchase records from the 1940s in one of my posts there. But if you take enough data points from, like, in this year it was described like this, and in this year it was described in this, and the 1939 Victualling Manual says this, and in 1955, you know, the parliamentary testimony says this. It feels like, at least in the 20th century, that it's solidified around 60% Demerara rum and 30% Trinidad rum. And to be honest, like, Trinidad rum didn't really come into its own until the early 20th century in terms of volume and what they were selling. But 60% Demerara rum, 20 or 30% Trinidad rum, and then there was always this sort of like the last 10% was something else, and like what those were sort of changed over the eras. Like in the 39 Victualling Manual, it says Mauritius and Natal, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't even know what Natal is. I had to go look it up. It's South Africa, which I believe at the time, I could be wrong, but at the time was still a British colony. I know far more about the British Empire than I do about American history now at this point. But you know, it's sort of like that core was always, at least the last 100 years or so ago, and especially when you look at the trade volumes of what Guyana was shipping to the UK, it seems fairly clear that Guyana rum, Demerara rum, as they called it, long past, you know, when there were, you know, it was all British Guyana, was the core, and in particular the Port Morant. Like, that was very definitely sort of that heart of the Guyana component. And if you, for those of you who know what Port Morant tastes like, and is one of my favorite flavors in the world. Like I will drink Port Morant from now till I die, because I love that weird sort of green, weird vine flavor. But that seemed to be one of those core components of a British Navy rum, of a Royal Navy rum. And if you tell me a rum like, well, it's inspired by the Royal Navy and it doesn't have some detectable Port Morant in there, I'm like,
yeah.
And I do certainly in the finest Caribbean, I taste that. So.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's one level where it's nice to play along with tradition and try to tick off those boxes, but the other side of it, you know, as Sukhinder mentioned, you know, we already kind of had the last consignment, and when you've got that, it's like, well, if you want that, have that. Like, rather than do like a poor imitation of it, why not just create something in its own right? So, you know, I hope that everyone who's drinking the finest Caribbean with us at the moment enjoys how all those flavors have come together. I hope it's a nice little marriage for you. You know, for me, each of those components contributes a different element to a blend. You know, the Barbados for me is the fruity tropical, it's the pina colada of rum, you know. That's all those beautiful, bright, fresh fruit notes. Then the Guyana gives all that chocolate and coffee and licorice, and then the Jamaica gives all that funk and spice and that little kick, which is so delicious. And hopefully, if we've done it right, you know, when you taste that blend, I think by trying the components first, you know, it's like listening to each instrument individually, and you go, okay, that's what each of those sounds like, that's what each one tastes like. Then when you try the blend, hopefully it's easier to actually pick those individual notes out and go, right, okay, that's what it sounds like when it all comes together.
Yeah,
So,
I'll just jump in really quick and say there was actually a discussion a day or two ago in the Tiki recipes forum on Facebook. And they were talking about like, what rum should I buy? What about this? And, and people are like, like Probitas and OFTD and Denizen and I at some point I felt like I had to jump in and say like if you love Tiki and you really want to understand, the flavors and how you blend rums together and why these rums are constructed, like put aside those blended rums for the beginning part. Like literally go buy a funky Jamaican rum and understand it. Go buy an unaged agricole and understand it. Buy an aged agricole and understand it. Go buy a lemon heart rum or some, a demerara. Understand the instruments before you start trying to decide like which symphony is better than another symphony without understanding the instruments. So
that's exactly what I was going to say, Matt. I was taught this, or I learned this a long time ago, that the individual components in music are the notes, and the final blend is a symphony.
Yeah,
exactly. A masterpiece.
Exactly. There's fantastic things out there, but it's sort of like you need to learn how you why and how you get to that point. If you just want something to get you drunk, buy whatever. But if you really want to understand it, you have to understand the different flavor categories.
The interesting thing is like what we were talking about earlier, that you'll try the components, you will like 1 or 2 out of 5 or 6 or 10 components, but actually when you put them together, you'll just realize that those off components actually work in such beautiful harmony in the blend when you just wouldn't expect it. Maybe you don't like it as an individual note or as an individual flavor, but as part of a blend or a cuisine, it works.
Right. And I would just add really quick is, we're talking about multi-country blends here, but the vast majority of rums, even of like an Appleton Estate rum or a Hampton rum or a Mount Gay rum, they're not one mark. They're not like we took this rum and distilled it, like put it in a cask. Like, no, they themselves are blends, and typically a light rum and a heavy rum or whatever. And the art of blending, even within the same distillery, is highly underrated. I feel like
I think that's very
different.
Very different to like where I come, my background, which is whiskey. In a distillery, they just have a pair of stills or 2 pair of stills or 3 pair of stills, and they produce the same spirit. Yeah, the big difference is the casks. Yeah, and how they put the final blend together in terms of casks. What I love, which is beautiful in rum, is exactly what you say. Each distillery produces multiple styles of spirit, and then they put those components together to create their final blends or their final expressions between, like, the 10-year-old or the 3-year-old is so different to the 5-year-old, which is so different to the 8-year-old, which is so different to the 12-year-old and 18. And the only place I find that in whiskey is actually in Japan, okay? Because if you talk about blending in Scotch, yeah, so what happens is all the distillers swap with each other, and they use 5 or 10 or 20 different malt whiskeys and a couple of grain whiskeys in a blend. In Japan, being competitive or whatever, honorable, and they don't talk to their competitors, they don't swap. So what they had to do was they had to become versatile. They created multiple different single malts in one distillery, so they could have the flexibility to create blends. Yeah, and I thought that was genius. And there's nobody in Scotland that does that, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. It's sort of an analogy I like to make is that, as you were saying, the whiskey distilleries, they might make, this is our flavor. Like we always distill this way. We always put it in these kind of casks, and you make basically like one whiskey, and then you age it for a different amount of times. And I like to think that rum distilleries are like bakeries. Like they can make a croissant, they can make a donut, they can make, they can make a cake. Like they make all these different things. And then most of the blends that we love El Dorado 15 or Appleton 12, they're not all one thing. They're blends of different things they've made, and people don't realize that.
And then also now we could talk about, I guess this is where specialist bottlers like Velier, like independent bottlers come in, because they're going to these distilleries and saying, can we bottle your individual components? You know, we want to find good examples of your individual components. And that's what a good independent bottler should be doing. Some, unfortunately, just buy anything they can get and put it in the bottle going, this is, you know, as you say, Port Morant, or this is whatever, Versailles, or this is whatever. But actually, a really good bottler should be looking at, you know, a component and saying, is it really tasty as it is that we should bottle it?
Right.
You know, and this is where rum is evolving and changing and getting really exciting.
And I'm very glad for the, you know, the independent bottlers who are giving us the opportunity. I mean, to be honest, us enthusiasts we're the tiny fraction of the market, but I think in some ways it's the enthusiast community that is driving rum forward. And the independent bottlers are helping us educate ourselves and helping us understand the different components and cleave apart the different elements and understand it ourselves, so that we can then go educate a broader audience. And so I love independent bottlers who will take a risk and, like, you know, we're gonna have this weird mark and we're gonna put out 300 bottles. Like, yes, you know, I'm absolutely love that.
I agree. And I think if you think about it logically, what you realize is when you bottle single casks, how different they are. Yeah. And then put it into perspective to understand how to make a consistent product of a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old, and how actually difficult it is. I actually respect master blenders more than anybody else in the industry. You know, distillers are great, but actually, you know, they've got a regime where they are told to do the same thing day in, day out to keep consistency. Yeah.
Right.
What the wood will do, you know, is a completely different thing. And then what a master blender does is take all those variations in wood and actually tries to build a consistent product. And I think that is what's beautiful.
Right.
You know, and, you know, with us, like us, with Black Tot and 50th anniversary being a blender who's not looking for consistency in, you know, let's say 50th anniversary, we're looking for beautiful product, individual components, and putting them together in a very different way and saying, this is what we got. I mean, the interesting thing is, even when we were doing Black Tot 50th anniversary, you know, we had maybe 10 or 12 iterations of it. Yeah. And honestly, the last 6 were all damn good. They really were. But they were all damn good.
Let's stop teasing them, Sukhinder, and let's actually pour some rum. And Jen, you were going to jump in with a point back there as well.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to say, I recently saw on a rum discussion site, a man posted that he had some Foursquare, and he was recently trying, I think it was Dorley's or Real McCoy, and he was so confused as to why it tasted so much different, but from the same distillery. And I thought, you know, it's really nice to see all these, you know, rum nerds go in and just kind of explain everything that's going on and why something from the same distillery is going to taste so different. And he was like, I know the proof and all this, but I know that's not it. Why is it tasting different? And everyone was like, it's all in the blend. It's all in the blend. And there is so much happening at rum distilleries. It's like what these gentlemen just said. It's beautiful to know that, you know, you have different still types, you have, you know, different ways of aging, you have different marks, all of these things, these components coming together depending on what distillery you're talking about. And I just love how it creates such different spirits from each distillery. And, you know, like Sukhinder said, the master blender is what's up. That's the real MVP right there. Doing that to create something consistent that I can keep on my shelf that's going to be the same year after year is astounding.
I'll just add really quick. I was one of the sort of more transformative moments of my understanding was when I was at Demerara Distillers, and I spent time with Sharon Sue Hang, who's their master blender. And, you know, he was like brutally honest about like a lot of the job is just like, okay, we think in this year, 20 years from now, we're going to sell this many cases of Eldorado 21. How much do we need to put down? How many, like, how much we need to put down? And like, yeah, like, so the distillery can make these different marks, and we need to like, we're going to need this many of this blend and this many of this blend, and accounting for cask and you know, cask differences. It's just staggering. Like, you think the master blenders, you know, they're just like sampling cask and like, oh, let's put a little of this and that. Like, no, their job is far more complicated to create a consistent product like Eldorado 3, 5, 8, 12, 15, 21, and planning 20 years out. It's incredible what they're doing there.
It absolutely is. It is ridiculous when you see behind the scenes of how these rums are put together and the foresight that goes into it. Let me share with you our 50th anniversary. So this is our final rum of the night, and I guess the reason why we've all come together. We have bottled 5,000 bottles of this worldwide. You have some of it with you right now in the United States, and hopefully all in your glasses still, if you haven't finished it already. It is a limited edition that we brought out last year for the 50th anniversary of Black Tot Day, the last day they gave out the rum ration in 1970. And as Sukhinder mentioned earlier, we wanted to do something pretty ridiculous for the 50th anniversary and put together something quite crazy. And you can see straight away when you smell this rum, when you start to taste this rum, you can see there's a lot going on. But again, one of the things which I love being able to do with Black Tot is we have created what I believe is possibly the sexiest back label in rum right now, which I'll share with you on the screen as well if you haven't seen it before. This is what's in your glass right now. This is the full breakdown. So we have tried, from a blender's point of view, to put as much information here as we possibly can, from the country of origin, the distillery it comes from, the mark if we have it, whether that distillery is still operating or not, what type of still it came from, the tropical versus continental aging breakdown, and something which I, to my knowledge, has never been done on a rum bottle before, the actual blend percentages as well. So you can see the weighting of how much each component contributes to the blend. I love this. I hope you do too. I think every time I look at it, it makes me happy inside. And yeah, hopefully there's something for everyone. There's I was trying to think early on when we first released this in the UK, how, I was trying to think of where do you ever see that sort of mix of some of those distilleries in one bottle together. It's almost like a dream rum geek blend to be able to put all this together. And it's bottled at 54.5%, so full Navy strength.
The correct Navy strength.
Is a rare example of correct Navy strength. Yeah. Fun fact: this is actually the fourth Black Tot we've released. So last consignment being the first, then our Black Tot 40-year-old, which was a 40-year-old Guyanese rum distilled at the Iflit Distillery in the Port Morant stills. Then Black Tot Finest Caribbean, and now 50th anniversary. This is actually the first Black Tot at full Navy strength, because the closest we had before was last consignment, but as we said, it lost 0.2 over the years going into the flagons and back out again. So yeah, fourth time lucky, we finally got there.
I just want to say, like, it warms my heart that you have the IFLOT, you have IFLOT listed as the distillery for Port Morant.
Yeah, we went back and forth a couple of times, Matt, so yeah, I think we got it right in the end, but it was difficult. What do you call it? Do you call it Demerara? Do you call it,
right.
It was difficult, but I think we got it right.
Yeah, so many people still talk about them. This rum comes from the Port Morant Distillery, and I'm like, not for a very, very long time. So
another interesting point. I mean, look, we're very proud of the back label. I guess it frustrates me as a whiskey drinker as well that we're not allowed to do this. So, you know, as I said, we're quite honest, we're quite transparent. We are proud of what we bottle and create. So for us, you know, when we did the rum, when we said, should we do this as a back label? I was, you know, first I said, no, we don't do that. And I was like, actually, that's a fantastic idea. Let's do it. And then, you know, we've had comments to say, look, you've only used 0.5% of the 42-year-old and 0.5% of the original Navy blend. And in honesty, that is exactly enough, because when we create the blend, we actually didn't have those two components initially. And for me, it was lacking something. And further, I go to Oliver, I go, look, Ollie, try adding this. And, you know, just like it was, wow, this is so much better. And it was like still missing something, you know, what's missing? We go, we have to add the original Navy blend. You know, how can we forget that? Let's try putting a little bit of that. And, you know, we tried it at 5%, 4%, 3%, 2%, 1%. And actually, you know, for us, 0.5%, I know it doesn't sound a lot, but it's about flavor. And I think we've done a really, really good job. I think it's a rum I'm absolutely in love with. You know, I can sit there for hours just nosing it, tasting it. Every time I've tried this rum, I just get new flavors. It just tastes different every single time. Enjoy.
Thank you. Jen, I'm fascinated again from the bar point of view, you know, when you see something like this, like, first of all, you know, is this the kind of thing that just you and me are going to get excited about, or do normal humans get excited about this too, Jen?
This is a dream. This is a dream. Like, this solves, I would say, you know, 90% of the issues that I have selling rum in the bar. It's definitely like the average person coming in off the street is not going to know anything about this. You know, Matt just made the joke about Port Morenton out Flutnaz. Like, that is a deep rum nerd. Like, deep, that's deep. You know, like, not a lot of people would understand that. But, you know, what they do understand, and I think is really cool, is like the status of the distillery, the country of origin, the type of still. I think, you know, that's kind of like high school education right there, the type of still. A lot of like spirits enthusiasts really get that. And then seeing the age. I think everyone understands age. You know, describing tropical versus continental aging, that's another thing. But I think that people would get that. And I think that everyone is going to be able to get something from this label. You know, some people are obviously going to get more from it, but I think everyone would see this and be like, wow, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of age here. You know, everyone's going to focus on that 42 years, obviously, but I think that's really cool. And then on top of that, you know, these numbers actually have years of aging to back them up and not just a number on a bottle. So yeah, to me, the rum nerd inside of me is just like giddy with this label, but I think that it's also really useful for educating the staff and also clientele. So.
And how'd you like the rum?
Oh, are you kidding me? I love the rum. Have you not seen me like pouring? Like, I've been like off to the side, just kind of like, oh, it's empty, time for a little bit more. Like I said, I'm not at the bar, so I'm not drinking as much rum as I normally do. I try not to just sit at my house alone drinking off of my bar cart. So I don't get to, you know, enjoy rum with people that often. And so it's been a delight, and this is fantastic. It's been a long time since I've, you know, gotten to try something new, and this used to be like my whole world. It was like trying new rums and stuff, and it feels really good to get to share rum with friends, try something new.
So I want to, I'd like to share with you one of the happy accidents that happened with this blend, and how we actually came to this final this final iteration. Because, you know, it'd be easy to say, oh yes, this is exactly how we intended it. It's not originally how we intended this blend. I think when this first started, it went back and forth a few times, but there is a certain story involving a cask of Hampton, which Sukhinder, I'd love to get some of your insight.
So we came up with the recipe, which I signed off, and then we had to buy. Well, we had full casks, or had to buy full casks of different liquid, which were part of the blend. But in some cases, we only used a quarter of the cask, or half the cask, or 3/4 of the cask. And what actually ended up happening was someone made a big boo-boo and married everything. Yeah. And when I got the sample, I'm sitting there going, it's okay, but I don't love it. Something's wrong. This doesn't taste anything like what we signed off. Do you still have the sample? Yes, I do. Get the sample. We put the two side by side, and I go, it's not even close. Yeah, something is wrong, dramatically wrong. And then we realize what had happened, and we go, okay, fine. Now we got to sort of fix this. So we go, okay. So we played about, found out what else we could get more stock of, and played about, and got some extra stock, which took a couple of extra months. Hence the reason the whole project also got delayed, partly COVID, partly this. And then when we married it, we were like, okay, this is our new recipe. And when the final blend came out, it was like, this is better than we could ever imagine. It was better than what we created, because with samples it's very difficult, because you're using such small proportions, and it's only from the top of the cask rather than that cask being shaken and moved and disturbed, and all those flavors have changed. And what you will find, I think for me, the most important part is, because this is a blend and it's got so many components, and logically this is only 7, 8 months old, in bottle, it will get better and better and better and better. With blends, you need time for all those components to harmonize and mellow, and oxidize with a little bit of air. So for me, don't buy a bottle, buy 3 or 4. Put them away and open one every 2-3 years, and you will be absolutely pleasantly surprised. Every time you open it, it'll be 5 times better than the last bottle you tried. Every time I try this liquid, it just gets better and better and better. And even with Finest Caribbean, it's a blend, and we're changing the way we do things in terms of our blending time. Before it was, blend, leave for 2-3 months, bottle. A lot of companies blend and bottle at the same time. And what I believe is, longer, when you're mixing lots of components, you're reducing strengths. And the thing with rum is, a lot of rum is at 70% plus, and you're taking it down to 40% or 43% or 45%. You're disturbing the liquid so much, you really are. So these products will, especially blended products, will get so much better over time.
I think what you're saying, Sukhinder, is that somebody made a mistake and you had to fix it by making more rum.
100%. You know what? It was a blessing. Look, shit happens, but it's how you fix it. And
now we have 5,000 bottles of it.
Correct. Absolutely.
Well, the wonderful thing from my side was that ever since I first joined Black Tot, and I'd read Matt's Navy book with his 32 blending vats, and this perpetual connected blend system, and I think I was about a month in before I said, can we build our own perpetual blend system and just actually recreate what the Navy used to do? And it was like, sure. No.
I've thought hard about this. And then
we've thought about it, Matt. We've thought about it. thing is, look, again, it works with the brand, whether it's the case of that's what we'll do in the long term with Finest Caribbean, or if we find that actually it turns out to be a completely different beast or a different product, maybe it's an excuse for a new product or a different expression, but they have to be different enough from each other. It's a simple fact.
One of my favorite outcomes of all of this, because obviously, when people are asking in the comments how many bottles did we intend to blend, we always intended to blend 5,000.
Correct.
But to balance out the blend, we ended up with a third extra rum, because essentially we had to balance out all of the extra Hampton which had been dumped into this blend. Like of all those components you saw on that back label, if there was one rum that was going to absolutely fuck it up for everyone, it was if that Hampton cask
change it, not fuck it up. Change it.
Just blow out every other component, like it'd be like cooking and you're like putting some chili on or something and the lid comes off. It's just like, now it just tastes of that. This is what this super funky high ester Hampton did. And
oh no, I poured an Angostura bitters into my cocktail.
Yeah, that's it.
Well,
And
at Rumba, we actually refer to Jamaican rum as salt sometimes. We're like, oh, it needs a little bit of salt,
there you go. Absolutely. In the right amount, it's the perfect thing to just bring out the blend. And when I got the call from Ollie, our blender, saying, right, we've had to essentially buy a whole load of extra casks to fill out this blend and balance out all of the Jamaica in it. And I'm like, okay, that's great. He's like, so we've got the 5,000 bottles. He's like, you know that perpetual blend you wanted to do before? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, well, we now have a third extra rum. So that third extra is going to become the basis for next year's Black Tot blend. So this is actually, although this is the 50th anniversary, this will actually be the beginning of a yearly Black Tot blend that we'll be releasing. And each year we'll add whole different casks and take it into all different directions. You might see some other countries pop up into the blend as well. Keep an eye out for this year.
Look, you know what? This worked so well that it inspired us. What else could we do? What should we do? I think this product is really the skill of the blender, is what we're talking about. Yeah. So what we decided to do is, rather than call it 51st anniversary blend, we're going to create a new product next year, which is going to be called Master Blenders Reserve. Okay, which is carrying on from this. So we're going to use the previous year's blend as the beginning for the next blend. Yeah, but we're not trying to replicate it. We're trying to create something different. Again, we're trying to show the skill of the blender to say, you know what, it's still got the element of Black Tot, the Demerara, the naval element, and then it's got a dimension, whether it's the dimension is Barbados, or the dimension is Trinidad, or the dimension is Guyana, or the dimension is Jamaica. It doesn't matter. We want to create a different product each year, but using the previous year's art. So what we did with the 50th, the leftover liquid, we actually put it back into wood, different types of wood, to see how it evolves, and then use part of that. But to be fair, one or two of the barrels have actually proved that to be so beautiful, we might actually not put them in the blend and keep them for something special. So there's a lot going on.
Either way, keep an eye out for this Black Tot Day this July, because we've got something very, very special coming for you. So everyone who is watching, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you so much to our speakers. Jen, thank you so much for all of your wonderful insights into the bar industry. And I cannot wait to have a daiquiri with you in real life, in person. Thank you for everything you do. Sukhinder, thank you for giving me a job. Hope tonight's gone well.
Guys, did you do a good job? I think so.
Matt, thank you so much for all of the work and the education and all of the articles you put into the rum world, and for helping give us so much. And we are going to, I'm seeing the comments going, we are going to have a toast together. So please put some rum in your glass if you don't have some already. We are going to do a toast all together. And if you haven't done this toast with us before, I'm going to run you through it. And it's a toast that was taught to me by the person who taught me about rum. It's a very old 400-year-old toast, which I think is the perfect ending after having a few rums together. So thank you again to everyone who's joined us tonight. Please, if you have any questions at all, you can contact me on socials. I've emailed all of you. You have my email. Please contact me anytime. I'm always happy to talk about rum. I hope tonight has given you a flavor of what Black Tot rum is all about and what we're trying to do as a brand and as a rum. And I hope you like what we're doing in the rum world. So please raise your glasses. If you're very noisy, you can stay muted. But in a moment, I'll ask you all to. Unmute. I'm going to say the first line of the toast. You repeat after me, but you have to do the arm movements. Okay, it's very important. We're going to try this all together. Let's see if this works. We've never tried this with over 100 people on the Zoom at the same time. So let's give it a go. Ready? Repeat after me. There are tall ships.
There are
tall ships.
No, come on. We can do this better, right? Everyone, get your mute off. Right? Let's do this properly. So, there are tall ships.
There are tall ships.
And there are small ships.
There are small ships.
And there are ships that sail the sea.
There
are ships that sail the sea.
But the best ships are friendships.
Friendship.
So here's to you and me. United States of America, we love you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers to you all.
Cheers. Have a great evening.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.